Hi students of RB, this is the librarian Mrs. Phillips, and I'd like to welcome you to Digital Citizenship Day. The purpose of today's presentation is to talk about being responsible and safe online. Our speaker, Kathleen McGowan, has been with the Cook County State's Attorney's Office since 2005. She joined the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force in 2010 as Outreach Coordinator and Services Specialist for Child Victims of Technology-Facilitated Crime. The ICAC Task Force is one of 61 task forces nationwide comprised of law enforcement and other agencies to protect children online. Please welcome Ms. McGowan.
Okay, thank you very much. So today we're going to give you guys some things to think about whenever you're online, no matter what you're using. The things that we're going to talk about today are things that I also talk to adults about as well. So part of my job is outreach. Part of my job is working with people under 18 who are victims of the things we're going to talk about today. So victims of harassment online, victims of people who try to meet them offline, people who ask for inappropriate pictures. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about all those, although very quickly, and give you some things just to watch out for that will hopefully carry you through. Just, I know you guys get this in school, but just so you have some things to keep tucked in the back of your head. First thing I'm going to do is show you guys a short video. This video is actually a winner in a contest back in 2011. If any of you like to make your own videos, there's a company called Trend Micro. You can find them online. They're a cybersecurity company. They run a contest every year for internet safety and cybersecurity videos. I believe this contest isn't over till the middle of April. The grand prize for these videos is $10,000. They also have smaller $5,000 prizes. So if any of you like to do that, it's students that enter. So you have a really good shot at doing that as well. So I'm going to show you this one, and then we'll go from there.
This is a line, and this line is mine. You will kindly find my feet and my spine are perfectly aligned. You'll also find that on either side is a plus and a minus sign. Right now I'm on this line, minus this, now I'm online. This is a line, and this line is mine. You will kindly find my feet and spine are on the plus side. Now I'd like to assign and also define what one might find on this side of the line. I will not pretend that there are no consequences of saying something offensive online, no matter what my ignorant friend says. Because words are all I have, and yeah, I know it's sad. We hide behind the mask of the latest social networking fad. So there's respect in my status, whether through Mark Zuckerberg or Tom, and I'll treat you the same in person, and yeah, I'll accept your friend request, Mom. This is a line, and this line is mine. You will kindly find my feet and my spine are on the minus sign. Now I'd like to assign and also define what one might find on this side of the line. Now I might seem unassuming, but if you only knew what I was doing, brewing, spewing, spitting venom when I'm at that screen, I ruin. Reputations I will splatter, typing faster I get madder, all the insults I will gather. You're so lucky, it's only sadder. Day. You have one day, oh yes, Sunday, for my words to die away. And on that one day, oh, I must say, you're going to wish you had a different name. But then it's Monday, and at school, I'll remind them all of what I said. Then it's Tuesday, and then it's Wednesday, and then we'll all find out you're dead. This is a line, and this line is mine. And now that I've assigned what one might find on either side, you will kindly find that my feet and my spine are on the plus sign. And I'm not moving. Where are you?
So the reason I like to use his video, even though it's a little bit older, is because he brings up really valid points that are still very relevant. He talks about consequences. And there's consequences, good and bad, no matter what we do, whether it's face-to-face or online. A lot of time people tend to think that being online, being behind a screen, gives you a little boost of bravery or might make you more anonymous than you think you really are. But even companies that tell you that your accounts are anonymous, if something happens, especially things that are inappropriate with someone under 18, that anonymity goes away. Because they will turn their account users over to law enforcement when it has to deal with that. So that screen doesn't really make us anonymous. That account doesn't make us anonymous. It's something that there's always consequences for either way. He also talks about treating people the same in person or online as you would in person. And that's always important to remember too. It's very important that we remember not only are our friends face-to-face important, but the people that we make online. Part of the reason for that is because we don't know those other people most of the time. We have no idea who they are, what their story is, what they're about. So we even know less about what might trigger them into something happening to them because of what we comment on or what we say or what we like or don't like. So it's very important to always use that, golden rule that we all grow up with. The other thing he says is, at the end, is I'm not moving, where are you? So the great part about becoming an adult is you get to make your own decisions, right? And that's a really exciting thing. But that's also the bad part. Because if I had somebody to make at least 3 decisions for me a day, I'd be really, really happy. So making your own decisions can be a little overrated. So you have to be careful online as well. It's not a free range where you can go out and do things. You have to still be careful about who you are and what people see of you. Because now that you're being in high school, people will believe anything you say about yourself online. They're going to judge you by who you say you are online. And especially going into college, and even if it's a job, whether it's a job interview and your future employer is looking you up. A friend of mine had gone for a job interview a couple months ago, and as he sat there for his job interview, and he's older, the person that was interviewing him was typing into his keyboard and looking him up while he sat there. So they do that. Colleges as well, even before you get there. All they have to see what kind of person you are is what you post. In the last 9 years that I've been with the task force, I've met 11 students that have lost college scholarships because of what they've had posted online. I met a senior at a high school not terribly far from here who was a basketball player, and he was supposedly really good at it. I had spoken with his coach. The coach thought he was just the next best thing, and he had 3 free rides to different schools. By the time it came to make a choice, all 3 of those scholarships were taken away because of what he had on Twitter, what he posted on Facebook at the time. This was a few years ago. So what you post is really important. Once you post something, we can't always take it back, right? It could always be somewhere. So you have to be extra careful with whatever you're throwing out there about yourself. Going into college, future college roommates. If their parents look you up when you tell them what you're using as far as social media, they could decide to not have their child room with you. They can decide to not put you on teams, to let you join different things on campus. So it's very important that you put your best foot forward online, just like you would do walking into a room. Same thing. So 3 of the things that are really helpful to have when you're using social media, no matter what you're using, even if you're gaming. One is respect. And it's not just respect for yourself, because we teach that from the time, we get taught that when we're really little, right? We don't bully other people. We be careful what we say to other people. We respect other people's space and their feelings. But the trick I've found is trying to get students to understand how much they have to respect themselves when they're online. And a lot of that comes with the type of messages you're sending out, who you portray yourself as online, but also with pictures, with how you communicate with pictures and videos. We're going to talk a little bit about inappropriate pictures today and what to do to keep yourselves out of trouble with it and which ones are against the law and how. But you want to make sure that the pictures of you that are out there are appropriate. The last few cases I've had when I've talked to high school students about why they posted certain pictures, why they felt the need to do that. I have 3 out of 4 cases. The students told me I posted it because I didn't think anybody would care. It's just me who cares. But you have to care, right? So you're making the choice. You guys have to realize that you're worth way more than a picture, especially a picture that fractures you into pieces, right? Because that just objectifies you unnecessarily. And you also have to think about how much weight you're going to give a message that's sent to you by somebody that probably has no clue who you are or where you are. We had a 10-year-old boy not that long ago who was being bullied on Snapchat, of all places. So he was being bullied on Snapchat, but he didn't want to tell anybody because he knew his mom would tell him not to have that account. And I know he's younger than you guys, but it turns out his grades were dropping. He was having trouble eating. He quit hanging out with his friends. He wasn't really sure who or where this account was coming from. And it turns out when one of his teachers finally got it out of him what was wrong, he told her, I'm getting all these messages. I don't really know who's sending them because there's no actual name on the account. I'm not sure what to do. Once they turned that into law enforcement, they found out that it was an adult male in Florida who just randomly picked a kid that let him follow his account on Snapchat and thought it was fun. But he was destroying this kid's life in the meantime by making him so overly upset and distraught about messages. So we always have to, think about how other people are going to feel, what's going to come of what we like and don't like when we post things. But respecting yourself enough to know where those messages belong in the grand scheme of your life is a huge thing. The other thing is education. So you have to educate yourselves about everything that you use, whether it's an app, a game. Look it up as much as you can. If the app company doesn't tell you everything you need to know, I find that one of the best and most fun places probably right now to look things up is actually YouTube. Or if it's a game, go where somebody's live streaming while they're playing. You'll get to see exactly how it works in real time, right? You want to make sure that what you're downloading to use is appropriate for you, not only content-wise, but appropriate as far as who else is playing, right? What are they saying? How are they reacting to other people? Is it an account that you want to have somewhere where people can follow you that you may or may not have a certain amount of control over what they see? So everything you use, you want to make sure you educate yourself as best as you can. Always know how to delete people, block them, right? Things that I tell kids from when they're really little, right? Which you guys probably all know. I'm sure most of you know more about what you use than I do. I, unfortunately, have gotten to know the creepy end of things. So I'm sure the technology part of it is way more common and way more secondhand to you guys than it is to me. But always make sure you're reading. Read that terms of service agreement. Technically, though, you have to be 18 to click on accept, because that's actually a contract. So even though a company says you can be 13 or 15 or whatever age they have set up for you to use their service, actually, you have to be 18 to click on a contract. But that will tell you almost everything they're going to do with what you use. That will tell you what they're going to do with your personal information. That will tell you who has access to your accounts and when. But keep in mind that that doesn't mean that it's always going to go that way. Some companies are very famous for taking down security settings, for taking down privacy walls, right? And they don't tell their users when they do that. So you have to make sure that what you post, what you put there, you don't mind other people seeing as well. Companies also don't tell people that within the last year or two, especially in the last year, that they've actually been turning in their users to law enforcement, especially when there's something posted that's inappropriate about somebody under 18. So whether it's somebody fighting or getting bullied on a bus, we've had cases like that. We've had cases where there have been videos and pictures posted where people under 18 are fighting or hurting someone intentionally. All of those types of things get reported to law enforcement. Snapchat alone, we get 3 to 4 reports from Snapchat every week here in Cook County, which may not seem like a lot considering how large Cook County is, but when you think of over the course of a year, Instagram does it, Facebook does it, they all do it. So you have to make sure that you're careful with what you post. When I first started and people used to say, well, is there really the internet police? And I'd go, yeah, right. Or they would call me that when I walked into a room. But now it's getting to be true because they're starting to turn people in for what they're posting. So you want to make sure that your stuff is not caught up in that it's all appropriate, that you have no shot of getting into trouble for that. And also because law enforcement has accounts everywhere. And that's important for you guys to know. Brookfield is part of our task force. We have 2 detectives in Brookfield, 1 detective, 1 sergeant right now, who are very well trained in these types of crimes. So they do check. They have accounts everywhere. We do have officers that do undercover work. They go online, they pretend to be your age so they can get to some of these people before they get to you. So know a little bit about every single thing that you guys use. Like I said, even a game. That way, you know, between the respect and the education, you can better protect yourselves. You want to protect yourselves not only to protect your rights and to know what those companies can and can't do with your information, but you also want to protect yourself from other people online. You want to make sure that you know exactly how to use their security settings, their privacy settings. Make sure everything is exactly the way that you want it, and revisit those every once in a while so the company has not taken down what you're using. You also want to make sure that you're worrying about your health and wellness. One of the big things now is people worrying about how much screen time they have, how much they're using. As long as you're balancing your life and you're keeping yourself healthy and the things you're watching on screen are appropriate and not harming you, that's, you know, screen time, not so much of a problem at your age, right? The little kids, maybe a little more. But you want to make sure that the things you're watching are keeping you healthy. If something's bothering you, if a game makes you too anxious, I know with the younger kids now, Fortnite is such a big deal, and the kids tell me how much they rage when they play, but there's a certain amount of aggravation and irritation that you should be getting from games, and then you might want to walk away for a few minutes. Always make sure that you're thinking of your health and what you're looking at. I know when I look at pictures that I see of cases, there's times when I have to walk away because the things that I see are not very healthy for me to see just in my normal work day. So you have to make sure you're treating what you see online the same exact way. And protect yourself from that. But also protect people who are younger than you. If you have younger brothers and sisters and you walk past them on a game, look at what they're saying, look at what they're communicating. We have people that go after students of all ages. So you want to make sure that they're not randomly communicating with strangers, that they're using appropriate words, that the games aren't letting through conversations that might harm your younger brothers and sisters. So, you know, protect them as well. And also, and I'm sure you guys know, if you do have younger brothers and sisters, they copy everything we do, right? So you have to make sure that the example that you're setting is what you want them to do. We've had children as young as 4th grade taking nude photos of themselves because they see their older brothers and sisters doing it and they don't realize what it is. They don't realize how that can harm them and how that's online forever. So you want to make sure that the example you're setting for them is positive as well. So your personal responsibility is your digital footprint. You want to make sure that wherever you go, you're leaving a positive trail, I guess, behind you. You want to make sure that your photos are appropriate, that any of the language you're using is appropriate. From now on, adults are going to make decisions for you guys, just like they did when you came out of 8th grade to come into high school. They can decide what you can and cannot participate in, scholarship money, any of that stuff. So you have to make sure the language you're using is not necessarily the language you use every day with your friends, but what you want someone else to see, right? Like the language you might use with your parents or when you have family over. You have to make sure that everything you post is clean and as crisp as it can be so they realize that that's the person you are. Okay, you want to make sure that any purchases you make, that you've checked out the companies. You want to make sure that any websites you use are actual companies as well. Do as much research online about those as you can. Check the Better Business Bureau whenever you're buying something. You always want to make as much of an effort as you can to make sure that stuff is actually real. You have to protect your name, your identity, and your reputation. Your identity because, believe it or not, the largest group in the United States to have their identity stolen are people under 18. And they don't want your identity because they think you have really big bank accounts. They want your identity because they want your identity. They want to create new accounts. I've met people who have had their identity used. I had one girl, she was applying for college, and she wanted a credit card, and she wasn't able to get it. And companies kept telling her she had bad credit. Well, she was 18. She had no credit anywhere. So she ended up telling her parents about, I'm getting all these rejections, I'm not sure what to do. Her parents ended up looking into it. It turns out she had made a Facebook account when she was younger, and then Facebook became for old people, so she quit using it and never really went back to see what she left behind on Facebook or what her privacy setting was, because she created the page when she was 10. So her parents ended up having to hire lawyers to clean up her daughter's credit that wasn't even her credit, because somebody took out 3 credit cards and a light bill with her information that she had on Facebook. So you have to make sure that you're very careful with that information. If you have accounts somewhere and you have profiles that have personal information on them and you're not using those games or those apps or those sites anymore, ask those companies to take you off of their database. And then that way, hopefully they do it, and then you'll be clean and clear of that one. You won't have to worry about somebody going back to it and finding your information later. And your name and your reputation, because that's all we have. The rest of your life, people are going to remember exactly who you guys are. When you come back to high school, when you're old like me and you go back to high school, I said, we're going to have our 40th reunion soon, which really scares me to death. But when we walk in that room, what's going to happen was exactly what happened at our last one. Everybody starts to remember exactly who did what and who said what and who acted which way. It doesn't matter how old we get, right? So whatever you guys put out there, that's what people are going to remember. So you want to make sure you're always careful with that as well. Protect your passwords. Remember that whatever you do, if it's your device and your account, you're responsible. A big thing with some students that use Snapchat in junior highs and high schools is to hand each other their cell phone and tell each other to hack their Snapchat. If somebody does it with your device and your account, you're responsible. If you hand somebody your cell phone because they ask you for a favor and they need to use it to call somebody or text somebody, you want to make sure you know exactly who that person is. If they use your cell phone to harass somebody with a text message, that looks like it's coming from you. There's no way to prove it's not you. So you want to make sure that you're very careful with your devices. Keep privacy settings on anything you have, any of your accounts. Keep your phones locked. Keep your school devices locked. Be very protective of whatever it is. Even sharing passwords with friends, right? You always want to make sure you can trust that person 100%. Pictures, be careful with your personal information, especially not with words, with what you're posting. Anything about you, you wouldn't tell a stranger, right? Which for you guys should be pretty normal to not, tell people your birthday, your address, right? But you want to be careful with pictures. If you post a lot of pictures, you want to make sure you're not posting pictures or even videos where you're wearing your school shirts. Maybe you're on a traveling team. What you're wearing shows who you are and your personal information just as much as what you post. Same thing with YouTube. If you have a YouTube channel, please be careful of what's in the background when you're making videos. We actually had a sophomore girl in one of the high schools who was stalked this past December by somebody who watched her YouTube channel. She had a poster of the play she was in at school behind her, and she didn't realize it right away. And she had already posted her video. And by the time she realized, oh no, I have this poster behind me, somebody had already seen it. And this guy actually came to her school 3 times before they realized he was trying to find her, just because of what she had posted behind her in the video. So please review everything that you guys do. Make sure you're not giving information behind you or what you're wearing. Watch your registration. When you register for something, if they do not require a piece of information, don't give it to them. Just give them what they ask for. That's all they need. And you also want to make sure that you're careful with your privacy settings. Set them as high as you can. Whatever it takes you to keep strangers away and people away from what you're doing. We don't know who's looking at our stuff to begin with, right? One of the things on here, post for the people you don't like or the people that don't like you. That's what you always want to do, because everybody usually has at least one friend, right? But our friends sometimes have friends that we don't like. Maybe we don't agree with what they say or how they act, right? Those are the people you guys want to post for, because you don't know what they're going to do with your personal information. So you have to make sure you're careful with that as well. And strangers online, online predators who might not even be strangers. Most of the cases I have 47 students under 18 that I'm helping in court this month. Of those 47, 23 are male. Everybody right now is under 17, but I do have a 17-year-old male. He's my oldest one right now. But almost every single one of them, they know the person that was bothering them online. They met them at school, they met them at church, they met them at a park. They know the people who are coming after them. So they're not even strangers anymore. So you have to be careful with whatever you're posting and putting out there. There's not a whole lot of privacy online. People can dig and find things. Even things with cell phones. Like, it totally amazes me, a lot of the things that you delete out of your cell phone. People can pull that stuff out. Law enforcement can pull that stuff out. So you have to know that once that stuff is there, it's really hard to pull back. As far as inappropriate communication, I want you to be careful of all of the people you communicate with online. Hopefully, you guys realize that those people are not necessarily the people that have your best interest at heart. Some do. Not everybody online is terrible. When I ask real little kids who a predator online looks like or what they see in their head, they always tell me it's a creepy old guy living in his mom's basement, sitting in the dark on his laptop. I almost get that same description everywhere I go. But the fact is, a lot of these people, you guys already know them. Whatever your version of normal is, that's what they seem to look like, because every kid I talk to says, they didn't look like they'd be a problem. They look perfectly fine to me. They look normal to me. So whatever that version is of normal can be who they are as well. You want to make sure you're very careful. Pay attention to communication. You know, just like in person, when we talk about not judging somebody by how they look, you certainly can't do it online. Because even if they're telling you the truth about who they are and what they look like and how old they are, they still might not be saying the things that are appropriate. Some of the things to keep tucked in the back of your head, no matter how old you get, these are all pretty good. If somebody gets too personal with you too fast, if somebody starts sending you gifts or telling you that they're going to make your world, turn around so it's 100% better, if they start telling you that they're your only friend, they pull you away from things that you like to do. Maybe it's stuff even after school. I've had students who completely stop hanging out with their friends, who start having issues with going to things after school, not going to games, not going to football games or basketball games anymore. If that happens, that's kind of a time to pull back as well. Realize how much time people are taking of you, right? If someone tells you that you have to have your cell phone on you in school so they can reach you whenever they want. I've had boys, when they're gaming, especially, it's been a lot of the boys, because they'll get into groups on games, and then the person, whoever's leading that group, will say, you have to be here at a certain time, and then they threaten them with something, right? If people demand you to be in a certain place at a certain time, and it's not comfortable for you, that's a problem. You also want to make sure that whatever they're saying to you is appropriate. And if anybody tells you that you have to keep them a secret, that's the first person you run from. I don't care how old we are. Pictures. I do want to go over pictures before we're done. So we've had a big upkick in people under 18 sending nude images of themselves. But we've also had a lot of cases this past year in high schools where people are taking pictures of others as well and posting them. So what I wanted to tell you guys is people take these pictures for lots of reasons. Some of the reasons are up on the slides. I've had students send them to high school students. I've had a lot of 8th graders send pictures to high school students that they've had a crush on because that's what they're told they have to do, and they just do it. I've had people who think it's going to impress somebody, who somebody might bother someone for a picture, and then they tell them no, and they say, well, if you send me one, I won't, I'll leave you alone, and then they go ahead and send it. There's tons of reasons that people take these pictures. What you need to know is that once these pictures are online, they never go away. I've met people who are older than me who had pictures taken of them when they were little by inappropriate adults, who then, as the years went by, posted them online, and those pictures still pop up. It's 40, 50 years, and those pictures are still floating around. These pictures never go away. If you send them to anybody, there's a chance they're going to get out, right? So we have to remember that there's sexting, right? We talk about sexting when we talk to students, but sexting can be a lot of different things. So as far as child pornography, almost any nude picture of someone under 18 can be considered child pornography. And there's a lot of different little rules and how pictures look and what the pictures are. But the best way to keep yourself out of it is to just figure any picture like that. It can be where someone's posed by someone else. It can be a selfie, anything like that. Those pictures are traded online like baseball cards, whether those people get them accidentally or they trade them on purpose. So you always want to make sure that you realize it is against the law to take that kind of picture of yourself or someone else. It's against the law to ask somebody for it. It's against the law to keep a picture like that on a phone or any other device, and it's against the law to distribute it. If you get a picture like that, whether you know the person or not, we would like you to turn it in, because we don't know if that person took that picture of themselves even though they didn't make the best judgment, or if they're being forced to take it. We've had students in Cook County saved from really bad situations because other students have helped them by turning in their pictures, because we don't know what's happening behind somebody else's door. So you want to make sure that you're not asking someone for those or taking them of yourself. You want to make sure that you're not sending them to anyone else. If you get one, then besides turning it in, your other option is to delete it. If you get caught with a picture like that, the police can tell when you got it on your device and when you got rid of it. So your best bet is to delete it immediately. Now, maybe you get it on a Friday or Saturday. You don't want to tell anybody at home. You want to show it to somebody here at school, to tell somebody here to help you turn it in. That's fine, but please make sure that you do not send it from your phone in the meantime, that you're hiding that phone from anybody younger than you that might get a hold of it and look at the picture. But please make sure you're turning it in as soon as you can. You have a reason for keeping it for those few hours, right? So those are the two things you have. If you delete the picture or you report it, you will not get in trouble. You will not get into trouble if that picture gets traced because you did not ask for that picture. Right? But when you start sending it, playing with it, that's a whole nother story. Then that gets you in trouble. The other thing is it can be considered harmful materials, which is a crime. Showing harmful materials to a minor. So you want to make sure you're not showing that picture to anybody. At the very least, if it's somebody you know, there is a law now called non-consensual dissemination of private sexual images, which is a really long name for a law. But that means that even if somebody knows you have their image, you cannot send it to anybody or show it to anybody without their permission. So the best thing to do when it comes to those types of photos of someone under 18 is to make sure you're staying away from it. The quickest way to protect yourself is to delete them. Okay? They can be traced by IP addresses. You want to make sure you're careful. You want to make sure that anything you're doing is not going to harm anyone else. Some of the things we see when we talk about harm, whether it's bullying or just messages of any kind, or even pictures being sent around to embarrass somebody else, sometimes it's emotional issues, sometimes education suffers, but a lot of times it's just anxiety. It's not knowing where messages are coming from. The police can investigate any message. They can trace the IP address as much as they need to. We had a girl who took a picture of someone changing for gym at a high school because she thought that was going to be funny to pass it around. The police traced it to 121 devices till they found the girl who took the actual initial picture. Every one of those kids, because the village decided to do it that way, they got a ticket from the police department for what they call municipal disorderly, which is bad behavior. And they ended up having to go to court. They all had to do community service. The people who didn't finish their community service actually had to go to juvenile and sit in detention to finish the hours. So different places take care of things in different ways. So please, whatever you do, watch what messages you post, watch what you're putting out there. The best piece of advice I can give you, always ask yourself if what you're posting passes the grandma test. If you wouldn't want your grandparents seeing what you're posting, then you probably shouldn't post it. My mom's mom was about this big, but she would come up out of nowhere and hit us in the back of the head and ask us if we were stupid. And then every time we did something wrong, she would be coming up behind you, and you wouldn't even hear her. That's how short she was. She would just come up behind you and whack. And I think of that even now, as long as she's been gone. If I'm going to say something or post something or do something, think about that person that keeps you in check. Always think about your future as well. And just make sure that you guys are doing as best as you can whenever you're online to put your best foot forward. Okay? So thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it.